The electricity had been cut off 3 days ago, and 8-year-old Lily Patterson sat in the dark apartment, watching her mother Sarah count the same 5 crumpled dollar bills for the 10th time. The eviction notice lay on the kitchen table like a death sentence, its red letters screaming "Final Notice," in the dim light from the hallway that still had power. "Mama, why are you crying again?" Lily asked, her small voice cutting through the silence. Sarah quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "I'm not crying, baby. Just tired." But Lily wasn't fooled. She had been watching her mother work 3 jobs for months now, leaving before dawn to clean offices, then rushing to her afternoon shift at the grocery store, and finally working late nights as a waitress at the diner. Sarah thought Lily was asleep when she came home each night, but the little girl often heard her mother crying in the bathroom. "Is it because of the paper?" Lily pointed to the eviction notice. She couldn't read all the big words, but she understood enough to know they were in trouble. Sarah's face crumbled. "Oh, honey." She pulled Lily into her arms, both of them sitting on the worn couch that served as their only furniture in the living room. "Everything's going to be okay. Mama's going to figure something out." "How much money do we need?" Lily asked. "Too much, baby. Too much." Lily had been saving her allowance money in a small jar under her bed. Every week, Sarah gave her $2 for helping with chores, even though Lily knew they couldn't afford it. She had been saving for a new backpack because hers had holes in it, but now she realized her mother needed the money more. "I have some money," Lily said quietly. Sarah shook her head. "No, baby. That's your money. You've been saving for your backpack. But we need it more for the house, right?" The next morning, Sarah left for her early shift, and Lily carefully counted the money in her jar. $12. It wasn't much, but it was everything she had. She had heard her mother talking to her friend on the phone the night before, saying they needed $2,000 to stay in the apartment. $12 wouldn't help with that, but maybe it could buy them food for a few days. Lily walked to the corner store and bought a loaf of bread and some peanut butter with half her money. She wanted to surprise her mother when she came home. As she walked back to the apartment, she passed the coffee shop where her mother sometimes worked extra shifts on weekends. Through the window, she saw a man in an expensive suit sitting alone at a table, his head in his hands. He looked upset like her mother did when she thought no one was watching. The man kept checking his phone and looking around desperately. Lily had never seen someone look so sad in such nice clothes. She thought rich people were always happy, but this man looked like he was about to cry. She remembered what her mother always told her about being kind to others, especially when they were hurting. She walked into the coffee shop, still holding her remaining $6. "Excuse me, mister," she said softly, approaching his table. The man looked up and Lily saw he had been crying. His eyes were red and puffy, just like her mother's got when she was worried about money. "Are you okay?" Lily asked. The man stared at her for a moment, surprised by the question. I missed something very important. Something that could have changed everything. My mama says when things are bad, sometimes a cup of coffee makes them a little better," Lily said. She looked at his empty cup. "Would you like another one? I can pay for it." The man's eyes widened. "Oh, sweetheart, that's very kind, but I can't let you." "Please," Lily said, holding up her $6. "My mama says helping people makes you feel better inside, and I want to feel better. We don't have much, but we have enough to share." The man looked at the little girl with her patched clothes and worn shoes, offering her money to buy him coffee. Something inside his chest tightened. When was the last time someone had offered him genuine kindness without wanting something in return? "What's your name, Angel?" he asked. "Lily. Lily Patterson." "Well, Lily Patterson, I'm Jonathan. And you know what? I think your mama is right about coffee making things better." Lily beamed and rushed to the counter, proudly ordering a large coffee for the sad man. She paid with her precious $6 and brought it back to his table. "Thank you, Lily," Jonathan said, accepting the cup. "This is the kindest thing anyone has done for me in a very long time. Will you be okay now?" Lily asked. Jonathan looked into her bright, hopeful eyes and felt something shift inside him. "You know what? I think I will be. Thanks to you." As Lily left the coffee shop, she felt good about using her money to help someone. She didn't know that the man she had just helped was Jonathan Rivers, one of the youngest billionaires in the city. She didn't know that he had just missed the most important business meeting of his career because his driver had gotten stuck in traffic. She didn't know that her simple act of kindness was about to change both their lives forever. All she knew was that she had helped someone who was hurting, just like her mama had taught her. And for the first time in weeks, despite their own problems, Lily felt hope. Jonathan Rivers sat in his corner office on the 45th floor of Rivers Tech Tower, but his mind wasn't on the quarterly reports spread across his mahogany desk. 3 days had passed since the coffee shop encounter, and he couldn't stop thinking about the little girl who had used her last few dollars to buy him coffee. Mr. Rivers? His assistant, Patricia, knocked on the door. The Henderson Group is here for the rescheduled meeting. Jonathan nodded, but his attention drifted back to that moment. The Henderson deal had been worth $50 million, and missing it should have been devastating. But somehow, after talking to Lily, he had felt clear-headed enough to negotiate an even better deal when they rescheduled. The little girl's kindness had given him something he hadn't felt in years: genuine human connection. Meanwhile, across town, Lily sat in her third-grade classroom, but she was having trouble concentrating. Her stomach rumbled loudly and she pressed her hand against it, hoping no one noticed. Sarah had been working double shifts all week, and there hadn't been much food at home. The bread and peanut butter she had bought were gone, and her mother had been skipping meals to make sure Lily ate. During lunch, while other kids opened their lunch boxes, Lily pretended she wasn't hungry. She had learned to do this weeks ago when the free lunch program ran out of funding. She told the teacher she had eaten a big breakfast, which was a lie, but she didn't want anyone to worry. "Lily, honey, come here," Mrs. Johnson, her teacher, called softly. Lily's heart sank. Had she been caught in her lie? "I have an extra sandwich today," Mrs. Johnson said quietly, so the other children wouldn't hear. "Would you like to share it with me?" Lily's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Yes, please." As she ate half of the teacher's sandwich, Lily thought about the sad man in the coffee shop. She wondered if he was feeling better now. She hoped her $6 had been enough to help him, even though she knew it wasn't very much money. That evening, Jonathan found himself driving past the coffee shop where he had met Lily. He parked across the street and watched through the window, hoping to see her again. He wanted to thank her properly, maybe give her family some money to help with whatever struggles they were facing. He could tell from her worn clothes and the way she had carefully counted her dollars that they didn't have much. An hour passed then too. Jonathan was about to leave when he saw a familiar figure walking down the street. It was Lily, but she looked different. Tired. Set. She was walking slowly, her small shoulders hunched forward. Jonathan watched as she stopped in front of the coffee shop and looked through the window at the table where they had sat. She pressed her small hand against the glass, and Jonathan could see her lips moving as if she was saying something. Unable to contain his curiosity, Jonathan got out of his car and walked over to her. "Lily?" She turned around and her face lit up with recognition. "Mr. Jonathan. Did the coffee help? Are you feeling better?" "Yes, sweetheart. Much better. Thank you." He knelt down to her level. "What are you doing here?" "I was walking home from school and I saw the coffee shop. I was wondering if you were okay." She looked up at him with those same bright eyes, but he could see exhaustion in them now. "Mama says when we help people we should check on them later to make sure they're still okay." "Your mama sounds like a very wise woman. Where is she now?" "Working. She works a lot." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, but Jonathan heard the loneliness underneath. "Have you eaten today?" Jonathan asked gently. Lily hesitated. "I had lunch at school." "What about breakfast? Or dinner?" "I'm not really hungry," she said, but her stomach growled loudly at that moment, betraying her words. Jonathan felt his heart break. This child had given him her last $6 for coffee, and she was going home to an empty apartment with no food. "Lily, would you like to have dinner with me? I know a nice place that has the best grilled cheese sandwiches in the city." Lily's eyes widened. "I don't think I should. Mama says not to go places with strangers." "Your mama is absolutely right. How about this? Do you have a phone number where I can call her and ask permission?" Lily shook her head. "Our phone got turned off last week." Jonathan felt a surge of anger, not at Lily or her mother, but at a system that could let a family struggle this much while he had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. "Okay, then how about we go to the diner where your mama works? You said she works a lot. Maybe she's there now?" "She might be at Murphy's Diner," Lily said hopefully. "But it's far from here." "I have a car," Jonathan said. "And I promise we'll only go where your mama is, okay?" 20 minutes later, they walked into Murphy's Diner, and Jonathan saw Sarah for the first time. She was taking orders at a table full of construction workers, her hair pulled back in a tired ponytail, her uniform wrinkled from a long day. When she saw Lily walk in with a stranger in an expensive suit, her face went pale. "Lily, what are you doing here? Who is this man?" "Mama, this is Mr. Jonathan. He's the sad man I bought coffee for, remember? He wanted to make sure I had dinner." Sarah looked at Jonathan with suspicion and fear. Sir, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but my daughter— Mrs. Patterson, Jonathan interrupted gently, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Your daughter showed me incredible kindness 3 days ago when I was having the worst day of my life. I just wanted to return the favor by making sure she had a good meal. Nothing more. Sarah studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. She had learned to be wary of men who showed sudden interest in her or her daughter. But there was something genuine in his eyes, and Lily was practically bouncing with excitement. Please, Mama? He said they have really good grilled cheese here. Sarah looked around the diner. Her shift wasn't over for another 3 hours, and she knew Lily would be sitting alone in their dark apartment, probably hungry. I can't leave work. What if I stayed here with both of you? Jonathan suggested. I could order some food for Lily and you could keep working. I'll sit right here where you can see us the whole time. Sarah hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay. But I'm watching you every second. As Lily ate her grilled cheese sandwich and drank her chocolate milk, Jonathan watched Sarah work. She was professional and kind to every customer, even the rude ones. She never stopped moving, refilling coffee cups, clearing tables, taking orders. She was clearly exhausted, but she never let it show to the customers. She's amazing, Jonathan thought to himself. How does she do it all? By the time Sarah's shift ended, Jonathan had learned more about their situation. The apartment, the eviction notice, the 3 jobs, the turned-off utilities. He had also learned something else, something that would change everything. As Sarah wiped down the last table, Jonathan approached her carefully. Mrs. Patterson, can I ask you something? Sarah nodded, still wary but less hostile than before. What's Lily's father's name? Sarah's face went white. Why would you ask that? Because, Jonathan said quietly, I think I might know him. The next morning, Jonathan sat in his office with a file folder thick enough to choke a horse. He had called his private investigator, Marcus Chin, at 5 a.m. and asked him to drop everything and focus on one case, finding out everything he could about Sarah Patterson and her daughter Lily. This is everything I could find on short notice, Marcus said, sliding the folder across Jonathan's desk. But boss, I have to ask, why the sudden interest in a waitress and her kid? Jonathan opened the file and found himself looking at Sarah's photograph from 9 years ago. She looked so young, so happy. It was her college graduation photo. Sarah Michelle Bennett, he read aloud. Born in Atlanta, Georgia. Graduated from Columbia University with a degree in journalism. His hands shook as he flipped through the pages. Sarah Bennett. Not Patterson. He remembered that name. He remembered her. Keep digging, Jonathan told Marcus. I need to know everything. Where she went after college, why she changed her name, how she ended up in this city. Sir, this feels personal. If you don't mind me asking. I might be that little girl's father, Jonathan said quietly. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. Well, that changes things. While Jonathan was uncovering Sarah's past, Sarah was quiet for a long time, considering his offer. What about Victoria? She's not going to be happy when she finds out about us. Victoria is going to learn that she can't control my life anymore, Jonathan said firmly. I should have stood up to her 9 years ago. What are you going to do? First, I'm going to make sure you and Lily are secure. Then I'm going to have a conversation with Victoria about the choices she made and the consequences that come with them. That afternoon, Jonathan picked Lily up from school in his Tesla. The other kids stared in amazement as the expensive car pulled up to the curb. Is that really your dad? Lily's friend Emma asked through the window. Yeah, Lily said, still getting used to the word. He's my dad. As they drove home, Lily peppered Jonathan with questions about his work, his car, his house. She was curious about everything, just as Sarah had said. Do you live in a big house? Lily asked. Pretty big. Would you like to see it sometime? Can Mama come too? Of course. Good. I don't want to go anywhere without Mama. That evening, Jonathan sat in his penthouse apartment, staring at his phone. He had been putting off this call all day, but it was time. He dialed Victoria's number. Jonathan, darling. Victoria's voice was smooth as silk. I was just thinking about you. Are we still on for dinner tomorrow night? We need to talk, Victoria. Tonight. Tonight? I have plans. Cancel them. This is important. An hour later, Victoria Hamilton walked into Jonathan's apartment like she owned it. She was stunning as always, perfectly dressed, perfectly made up, perfectly cold. You sounded serious on the phone, she said, pouring herself a glass of wine from his bar. What's so urgent? I know what you did 9 years ago. Victoria's hand paused halfway to her lips. I'm not sure what you mean. Sarah Bennett. The $50,000. The threats. Victoria set down her wine glass and studied Jonathan's face. Oh, you found her. I found my daughter, Victoria. My 8-year-old daughter who has been living in poverty while you've been playing house with me. Jonathan, let me explain. Explain what? How you threatened to destroy my company if Sarah didn't disappear. How you paid her to keep quiet about my child. How you've been lying to me for 9 years. Victoria's mask of perfection slipped slightly. I did what I had to do to protect our future. Our future? What future? We were never even really together, Victoria. We were a business arrangement that you manipulated into existence. I loved you, Victoria said, but even she didn't sound convinced. No, you loved the idea of controlling me. You loved having a brilliant husband who made you look good at parties. You never loved me. And you think this waitress does? This woman who took money to disappear from your life. She took money to protect me from your threats. She was 22 years old and pregnant, and you scared her into giving up the man she loved to save his dreams. Those dreams became reality, didn't they? Rivers Tech is worth billions because I helped you focus on what mattered. What mattered was my family. The family you stole from me. Victoria walked to the window looking out at the city lights. What do you want, Jonathan? Do you want me to apologize? Fine. I'm sorry. I made a hard choice, but I'm not sorry it led to your success. I want you to understand that it's over between us. Not just the fake relationship, but the business partnership, everything. I'm buying out your family's stake in Rivers Tech. Victoria turned around sharply. You can't do that. I can and I will. I've already had my lawyers draw up the papers. You'll get fair market value for your shares, but I want you completely out of my life. Jonathan, you're being emotional. Think about this rationally. I am thinking rationally. For the first time in 9 years, I'm thinking clearly. You're poison, Victoria. You've been slowly killing everything good in my life, and I was too blind to see it. And what about your precious Sarah? Do you really think she wants you back? She's been raising your child in poverty while you've been building an empire. Don't you think if she really loved you, she would have found a way to contact you? She was protecting me from you. Just like she's been protecting Lily from the kind of person who would threaten a pregnant woman. Victoria laughed coldly. You're going to throw away everything we've built for a woman who sold you out for $50,000? She didn't sell me out. She sacrificed her happiness for mine. There's a difference, though I wouldn't expect you to understand it. This is a mistake, Jonathan. You'll realize it eventually. The only mistake I made was letting you control my life for so long. That ends now. After Victoria left, Jonathan stood in his empty apartment, feeling lighter than he had in years. He had been carrying the weight of her manipulation without even realizing it. Now that weight was gone, and he could finally focus on what really mattered. His daughter and the woman who had loved him enough to let him go. He picked up his phone and called Sarah. How did Lily do today? He asked when she answered. She's been asking questions all evening. Good questions. She wants to know about your childhood, your parents, what you were like in college. What did you tell her? The truth. That you were kind and smart and ambitious. That you made me laugh. That I loved you very much. Loved? Jonathan asked quietly. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Love doesn't just disappear, Jonathan. Even when it has to hide. I love you too, Sarah. I never stopped. Don't say that unless you mean it. We have too much history, too much pain. Lily needs stability, not two adults who are confused about their feelings. I'm not confused. I lost you once because I was too young and stupid to fight for what mattered. I'm not making that mistake again. Jonathan. I fired Victoria tonight. From everything. She's completely out of my life. You didn't have to do that for me. I did it for all of us. For the family we should have been 9 years ago, and for the family we can still be now. As Jonathan hung up the phone, he looked around his cold, empty penthouse. Tomorrow he was going to start building a real home. A place where Lily could have her own room, where Sarah could feel safe and secure, where they could be the family they were always meant to be. Victoria Hamilton had stolen 9 years from them. But she couldn't steal their future. That belonged to them. When she took her lunch break, she pulled out her old phone, the one that had been disconnected but still had photos saved on it. She scrolled through pictures until she found what she was looking for. A photo from her college graduation. In the background, barely visible, was a young man in a cap and gown. Jonathan Rivers. Her blood ran cold. It couldn't be the same person. Could it? Sarah remembered that day clearly. She had been dating Jonathan for 2 years, and she thought they were going to get married after graduation. He had been talking about their future together, about the tech company he wanted to start, about the life they would build. Then everything changed. 3 weeks after graduation, Jonathan's fiancée, a woman named Victoria Hamilton from one of the wealthiest families in New York, had visited Sarah at her apartment. Victoria was beautiful, sophisticated, and cruel. "I know about you and Jonathan," Victoria had said, settling into Sarah's cheap furniture like a queen on a throne. "And I'm here to make you an offer." An offer. Leave town. Disappear. Never contact Jonathan again. Why would I do that? Victoria had smiled coldly. Because if you don't, I'll destroy him. My family owns the bank that's funding his little computer company. One word from me and his dreams are over. He'll lose everything, his business, his future, his family's respect. Is your little college romance worth ruining his entire life? Sarah had been young and scared. She loved Jonathan, but she also knew how much his company meant to him. He had worked so hard, had so many dreams. She couldn't be the reason they all came crashing down. "What if I'm pregnant?" Sarah had asked, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. She had been feeling sick for weeks but hadn't taken a test yet. "Then you'll handle it quietly, far away from here. I'll give you $50,000 to start over somewhere else. But if you ever try to contact Jonathan or claim that any child is his, I'll make sure you both suffer." Sarah had taken the money and left town that night. She had been too scared and ashamed to tell Jonathan the truth. She changed her name, moved across the country, and raised Lily alone. She never told anyone who Lily's father was, not even Lily herself. Now, 9 years later, Jonathan Rivers was a billionaire, and Victoria Hamilton was his business partner and, according to the magazines, his longtime girlfriend. Sarah had made the right choice in leaving, but seeing him again brought back all the pain and fear. That evening, Jonathan was reading through more of the investigation files when his phone rang. "I found something interesting," Marcus said. Sarah Bennett received a large cash payment 9 years ago, right before she left New York. $50,000. From who? That's the strange part. Came from a shell company, but I traced it back. It was paid by Hamilton Industries. Jonathan's blood ran cold. Hamilton Industries was Victoria's family company. "Are you sure?" "Positive. The payment was made 3 days after Sarah Bennett's last known address in New York, and she disappeared right after receiving it." Jonathan ended the call and sat in his dark office, pieces of the puzzle starting to form a terrible picture. Victoria had paid Sarah to leave. But why? Unless... He grabbed his phone and called the lab where he had sent the coffee cup Lily had drunk from at the diner. "Do you have the results yet?" "Yes, sir. The DNA test is conclusive. The child is definitely your daughter." Jonathan closed his eyes. Lily was his daughter. Sarah had been pregnant when she left New York, and Victoria had paid her to disappear. For 9 years, he had missed his daughter's life because of Victoria's manipulation. The rage that filled him was unlike anything he had ever felt. Victoria had stolen 9 years from him. 9 years of bedtime stories, first steps, birthday parties, school plays. 9 years of watching his daughter grow up. 9 years of Sarah struggling alone to raise their child. But the rage was quickly followed by something else: determination. He was going to fix this. He was going to make sure Sarah and Lily never had to worry about money again. He was going to be the father Lily deserved. And Victoria Hamilton was going to pay for what she had done. Jonathan picked up his phone and dialed Sarah's work number at the diner. "Murphy's Diner, this is Sarah." "Sarah, it's Jonathan Rivers. We need to talk." There was a long pause. "I know who you are," she said quietly. "Then you know why I need to see you. Tonight after your shift. It's about Lily." "Jonathan, She's mine, isn't she?" Another pause. "Yes." "Then we have a lot to discuss." "And Sarah?" "Yes. I'm going to make this right. I promise you that." As Jonathan hung up the phone, he looked out at the city lights below. Somewhere out there, his daughter was probably sitting in a dark apartment, hungry and alone, while her mother worked herself to death trying to provide for her. That was going to change. Starting tonight. Sarah's hands trembled as she poured coffee for her last table of the evening. Every few minutes, she glanced at the clock on the wall, watching the minutes tick by until her shift ended and she would have to face Jonathan. She had rehearsed this conversation in her mind 1,000 times over the years, but now that it was actually happening, she felt like she might throw up. At exactly 11 p.m., Jonathan walked into Murphy's Diner. He looked different than he had the day before, more serious, more determined. Sarah finished wiping down the counter and nodded toward the back booth. "Lily's at home?" Jonathan asked as they sat down. "She's at my neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Chen watches her when I work late shifts." Sarah kept her hands folded in her lap to hide the shaking. Jonathan, I can explain. Victoria paid you to leave, he said quietly. $50,000. Sarah's eyes widened. How did you? I hired an investigator. I know about the money, about you changing your name, about everything. Jonathan leaned forward. What I don't know is why you didn't tell me about Lily. You were engaged to Victoria. You were building your company. I couldn't. You couldn't what? Let me know I had a daughter? Sarah's composure finally cracked. She threatened to destroy you. She said her family would pull all the funding from your company if I didn't disappear. She said she would make sure you lost everything you had worked for. So you decided for me? You decided I would rather have money than my own child? I was 22 years old and scared. Sarah's voice rose, then she looked around the empty diner and lowered it again. I loved you enough to let you go. I thought I was protecting you. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. Did you ever think that maybe I would have chosen you? Chosen our baby? Every day, Sarah whispered. Every single day for 9 years. Tell me about her, Jonathan said, his anger softening. Tell me about Lily. Sarah's face transformed when she talked about their daughter. She's brilliant. She taught herself to read when she was 4. She loves math and science just like you did. She's kind, you saw that yourself. Even when we have nothing, she always wants to help other people. She has your heart, Jonathan said. And your brain. She asks questions about everything. How things work, why things happen. I do my best to answer, but... Sarah trailed off. But what? Sometimes I see you in her so clearly it takes my breath away. The way she concentrates when she's thinking hard. The way she gets excited about learning new things. She's going to be amazing, Jonathan. With or without us. Jonathan felt his chest tighten. She shouldn't have to be without us. She shouldn't have to go to bed hungry or sit in a dark apartment because the electricity was cut off. I'm doing the best I can, Sarah said defensively. I know you are. You're incredible, Sarah. Raising her alone, working 3 jobs, never giving up. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. Sarah shook her head. I can't take your money. I won't be your charity case. This isn't charity. She's my daughter. I have 9 years to make up for. And what about Victoria? She's still in your life, isn't she? What happens when she finds out about Lily? Jonathan's jaw tightened. Victoria is about to learn what happens when you mess with my family. Jonathan, don't do anything that will hurt your business. My business? Jonathan laughed bitterly. Sarah, I'm worth $3 billion. Victoria's family money helped get me started, but I haven't needed them for years. I could buy and sell Hamilton Industries 10 times over. Sarah stared at him. $3 billion. The company went public 5 years ago. I own controlling interest in Rivers Tech, plus investments in about 50 other companies. Jonathan reached across the table and gently took her hand. Lily will never have to worry about money again. Neither will you. I don't want your money, Sarah said, but she didn't pull her hand away. Then what do you want? Sarah was quiet for a long time. I want her to know her father. I want her to understand that you didn't abandon us, that you didn't know about her. I want her to be proud of who she is. She can know me. Starting now, if you'll let me. It's not that simple. She doesn't even know who her father is. I told her he was someone I met in college who moved away. I never told her about you because I didn't want her to hope for something that might never happen. Well, now it's happening. Sarah pulled her hand back. Is it? What happens when you get bored of playing daddy? What happens when Victoria convinces you that we're just a complication in your life? What happens when Lily gets attached to you and then you leave? I'm not leaving, Jonathan said firmly. I've already missed 9 years. I'm not missing another day. Promise me something, Sarah said. Anything. If you're going to be in her life, you have to be all in. No half measures. No showing up when it's convenient and disappearing when it's not. She's been through enough disappointment. I promise. And promise me you won't try to replace me. I know I can't give her the things you can, but I'm her mother. I've been here for every fever, every nightmare, every scraped knee. You can't just buy your way into being her primary parent. Jonathan nodded. I don't want to replace you. I want to be part of the team. I want us to raise her together. Together? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. However you want it to work. I just want to be her father. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She's going to have so many questions. We'll answer them together. And Victoria? Jonathan's expression hardened. Victoria is going to learn that actions have consequences. She stole 9 years from me, Sarah. 9 years from Lily. She's going to pay for that. Don't become someone you're not because of revenge, Jonathan. Lily needs you to be the man I fell in love with, not someone consumed by anger. The man you fell in love with would have fought for you, Jonathan said. He would have told Victoria to go to hell and chosen his family over everything else. I'm not making that mistake again. As they left the diner together, Sarah felt like she was walking into a new life. She was terrified, hopeful, and confused all at once. Everything was about to change for her and Lily. She just hoped they were strong enough to handle whatever came next. The next morning, Jonathan arrived at Sarah's apartment building with bags of groceries and a cashier's check that would cover 6 months of rent. He had spent the night thinking about how to approach this delicate situation. He wanted to help immediately, but he also understood Sarah's pride and independence. Sarah answered the door in her worn bathrobe, her hair messy from sleep. Behind her, he could see Lily sitting at a small table, working on homework by the light coming through the window. "You're early," Sarah said, stepping aside to let him in. "I brought some things," Jonathan said, setting the grocery bags on the counter. "Basic stuff: milk, bread, eggs, fruit." Lily looked up from her homework and smiled. "Mr. Jonathan, are you having breakfast with us? If that's okay with your mom." Sarah nodded, watching as Jonathan unpacked the groceries. He had bought everything they needed and more: cereal, sandwich meat, cheese, apples, bananas, even ice cream. It was more food than they usually had in a month. "Lily, honey, can you set the table?" Sarah asked. "Mr. Jonathan is going to eat with us." As Lily busied herself with plates and cups, Jonathan pulled Sarah aside. "We need to tell her today." "I know. I just don't know how." "We'll figure it out together." They made breakfast together: scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice. Lily chattered about school and her friends, completely unaware that her entire world was about to change. "Lily," Sarah said when they finished eating, "Mr. Jonathan and I need to talk to you about something important." Lily's face grew serious. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby. Not at all." Sarah looked at Jonathan, who nodded encouragingly. "Do you remember how you've always asked about your daddy? You said he was someone you knew in college who moved far away." "That's true. But there's more to the story." Sarah took a deep breath. "Mr. Jonathan is your daddy, Lily?" Lily looked back and forth between them, confusion clear on her face. "What do you mean?" Jonathan leaned forward in his chair. "I'm your father, sweetheart. I didn't know about you until a few days ago, but I'm your dad." "But you're rich," Lily said, as if that explained everything. Jonathan couldn't help but smile. "Yes, I am." "Does that seem strange? If you're my daddy, why didn't you help us when we needed money for the rent?" The question hit Jonathan like a punch to the gut. Out of the mouths of babes. "Because I didn't know you existed, Lily. If I had known, I would have been here every single day." "Why didn't Mama tell you about me?" Sarah and Jonathan exchanged glances. They had agreed to keep the explanation simple and age-appropriate. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes when they're scared," Sarah said. "I was scared when I found out I was going to have you, and I made a bad choice. I should have told your daddy about you right away." "Are you going to live with us now?" Lily asked Jonathan. "We're still figuring that out," Jonathan said. "But I want to spend time with you every day if that's okay." "Will I have to change schools?" "Not unless you want to," Sarah said quickly. "Nothing has to change right away." Lily was quiet for a moment, processing everything. "Can I still call you Mr. Jonathan?" "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. Mr. Jonathan, Jonathan, Dad, Daddy, whatever feels right to you." "I think Mr. Jonathan for now," Lily said solemnly. "Until I get used to the idea." "That sounds perfect. Does this mean we don't have to move out of our apartment?" Jonathan looked at Sarah, who nodded slightly. "No, sweetheart. You don't have to move unless you want to. In fact, I'm going to make sure you and your mama never have to worry about money again." "Really? Really?" Lily was quiet for another moment, then she asked, "Can I hug you?" Jonathan felt his eyes fill with tears. "I would love that more than anything." Lily climbed into his lap and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Jonathan held his daughter for the first time, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. 9 years of missed moments crashed over him all at once. First steps, first words, first day of school, lost teeth, bedtime stories, Christmas mornings. "I'm sorry I wasn't here before," he whispered into her hair. "It's okay," Lily said. "You're here now." After Lily left for school, Sarah and Jonathan sat at the kitchen table, both emotionally drained from the morning's revelation. "She took it better than I expected," Sarah said. She's remarkable. Just like her mother. Jonathan, we need to talk about what happens next. I meant what I said yesterday, I won't be your charity case. And I meant what I said about taking care of my family. But I have an idea that might work for both of us. What? You have a journalism degree from Columbia. You're obviously brilliant. You've managed to keep yourself and Lily afloat under impossible circumstances. What if I offered you a real job? Doing what? I need someone to run the Rivers Foundation. It's my charitable organization, but I've been too busy to give it the attention it deserves. The position would pay $200,000 a year, plus benefits, plus a housing allowance. Sarah's eyes widened. $200,000? You'd be responsible for deciding how to distribute about $50 million in charitable giving each year. It's a real job, Sarah. You'd be helping people, making a difference. And you'd be qualified for it even if you weren't the mother of my child. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. In the meantime, let me help with the immediate problems. The rent, the utilities, food, clothes for Lily. Let me catch up on 9 years of child support. 3 weeks had passed since the revelation, and Jonathan was learning what it meant to be a father. Every morning he picked Lily up from school and every evening he helped her with homework at Sarah's kitchen table. It was a routine that felt both foreign and completely natural. Mr. Jonathan, can you help me with this math problem? Lily asked, pointing to her worksheet. Of course. Jonathan pulled his chair closer to hers. What part is confusing you? I don't understand why we need to find the common denominator. Jonathan smiled. Sarah had been right, Lily had his analytical mind. Think of it like this. Imagine you have 2 pizza boxes, but one pizza is cut into 4 slices and the other is cut into 8 slices. If you want to know how much pizza you have total, you need to cut them the same way first, right? Lily's face lit up with understanding. Oh, so the common denominator is like cutting all the pizzas the same way. Exactly. You're brilliant, just like your mom. Sarah looked up from where she was preparing dinner and smiled. Watching Jonathan with Lily felt like seeing puzzle pieces finally click into place. He was patient, encouraging, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and questions. Mama, can Mr. Jonathan stay for dinner again? Lily asked. If he wants to, Sarah said. But he probably has important businessman things to do. Nothing is more important than this, Jonathan said, and he meant it. After dinner, while Lily was taking her bath, Jonathan and Sarah sat on the small couch in the living room. The electricity had been turned back on, and they had food in the refrigerator, but Sarah was still adjusting to not worrying about money every second of every day. I got the job offer letter today, Sarah said, holding up an official-looking envelope. And? It's real. All of it. The salary, the benefits, the housing allowance. She shook her head in amazement. 6 months ago, I was worrying about whether we'd be evicted. Now you're offering me a job that pays more than I made in 5 years combined. You're qualified for it, Sarah. Your college grades were excellent, and you've shown incredible resourcefulness and determination. The foundation needs someone who understands what it's like to struggle, someone who can identify where help is needed most. What if I'm not good at it? What if you're amazing at it? Sarah was quiet for a moment. There's something else we need to talk about. Lily's been asking about where we're going to live. What did you tell her? That we haven't decided yet. But Jonathan, this apartment, it's not much, but it's been our home. I don't want her to feel like her old life wasn't good enough. Jonathan understood. What if we looked at it differently? What if, instead of you moving into my world, we built a new world together? Somewhere that feels like home to all of us. What do you mean? I mean we find a house. Not my penthouse, not this apartment, but something new. Something that can be ours from the beginning. The next day, Jonathan, Sarah, and Lily spent the afternoon looking at houses in a neighborhood with good schools and plenty of trees. Lily ran from room to room in each house, imagining where her toys would go, which room would be hers. This one has a big backyard, she announced in the 4th house they visited. And the kitchen is big enough for all of us to cook together. Do you like it? Sarah asked. I love it. But... Lily hesitated. But what, sweetheart? Jonathan asked. Will we still be a family if we live in a big house? Sometimes on TV, when people get rich, they stop loving each other. Sarah knelt down to Lily's level. Money can't change how much I love you, baby. And it can't change how much your dad loves you either. Promise? Promise? Jonathan said, joining them on the floor. Being a family isn't about where you live or how much money you have. It's about taking care of each other and being there when someone needs you. That evening, while they were eating dinner at their usual spot in the apartment, Sarah's phone rang. She looked at the number and frowned. Who is it? Jonathan asked. I don't know. I don't recognize the number. She answered hesitantly. Hello. Is this Sarah Patterson? The voice was crisp, professional, and unfamiliar. Yes, who is this? My name is Victoria Hamilton. I believe you know who I am. Sarah's face went pale. Jonathan immediately stood up, but Sarah waved him back to his seat. What do you want? Sarah asked. I want to meet with you. Tomorrow if possible. There are some things we need to discuss. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you'll find it very interesting. I have information about Jonathan that you might want to know before you make any permanent decisions about your future. Sarah looked at Jonathan, who was listening intently. What kind of information? The kind that's better discussed in person. Meet me at the Ritz-Carlton downtown, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. The bar on the top floor. I don't. Oh, and Sarah? Bring your daughter. I'd like to meet her. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, her hands shaking. What did she want? Jonathan asked. She wants to meet tomorrow. She said she has information about you that I need to know. Sarah looked at him with worry in her eyes. She wants me to bring Lily. Absolutely not. You're not meeting with her, and you're definitely not bringing Lily anywhere near her. What if she's telling the truth? What if there's something I need to know? Sarah, Victoria is a master manipulator. Whatever she says will be designed to hurt you and break us apart. That's what she does. But what if? No. Jonathan's voice was firm. I won't let her hurt you or Lily. If she has something to say, she can say it to me. She specifically asked for me. Because she knows I won't fall for her games anymore. She's hoping you will. Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking. What if I go but I don't bring Lily? What if I just listen to what she has to say? Sarah. I need to know Jonathan. I need to know what she thinks she can use against us. If I don't go, I'll always wonder. Jonathan ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Fine. But I'm going with you. She won't talk if you're there. Then I'll wait in the lobby. But I'm not letting you face her alone. That night, after Lily was asleep, Sarah lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She had thought this part of her life was over, that Victoria Hamilton was a ghost from the past that could no longer hurt her. But now Victoria was reaching out, trying to pull her back into the web of manipulation and fear. Whatever Victoria had to say tomorrow, Sarah knew it wouldn't be good. But she also knew she was stronger now than she had been 9 years ago. She wasn't a scared 22-year-old anymore. She was a mother, a survivor, and a woman who had earned her place in Jonathan's life through love, not manipulation. Whatever game Victoria was playing, Sarah was ready for it. She just hoped she was strong enough to win. The Ritz-Carlton's top floor bar was exactly the kind of place Victoria would choose for a confrontation. Expensive, intimidating, and designed to make someone like Sarah feel out of place. But as Sarah stepped out of the elevator, she didn't feel intimidated. She felt angry. Victoria was already seated at a corner table, sipping champagne and checking her diamond watch. She looked exactly as Sarah remembered, perfectly beautiful and perfectly cold. Sarah, Victoria said, standing to greet her with a fake smile. You look different. 9 years of raising a child alone will do that to a person, Sarah replied, sitting down across from her. Yes, about that. Where is the little girl? I was hoping to meet her. My daughter is at school where she belongs. You wanted to talk to me, so talk. Victoria signaled the waiter. Would you like something to drink? Champagne? Or perhaps something more affordable? I'm fine. What information do you think I need to know about Jonathan? Victoria smiled and pulled out a tablet, swiping to a series of photographs. These were taken last week. Sarah looked at the screen and saw photos of Jonathan entering and leaving various buildings around the city. So, look closer. Victoria swiped to another photo, this one showing Jonathan with a beautiful blonde woman outside an expensive restaurant. Her name is Amanda Richardson. She's a partner at the law firm that handles Jonathan's personal affairs. Sarah studied the photo. Jonathan and the woman were standing close together, talking. They're having a business meeting. Are they? Victoria swiped to another photo, this one showing Jonathan and Amanda in what appeared to be an intimate conversation at a wine bar. This was taken 3 nights ago. While you were home with your daughter, Jonathan was having drinks with Amanda. Sarah felt a familiar knot forming in her stomach, but she forced herself to stay calm. What's your point, Victoria? My point is that Jonathan hasn't changed. He's still the same man who chose his career over love 9 years ago. Do you really think he's going to give up his lifestyle for a woman who brings nothing but complications to his life? I'm not listening to this. Sarah started to stand up. Sit down, Victoria said sharply. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Sarah remained standing. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me doubt Jonathan, doubt myself, doubt everything we're building together. I'm trying to save you from making the same mistake twice. The only mistake I made was believing your threats 9 years ago. I'm not that scared girl anymore, Victoria. Victoria's perfect facade cracked slightly. You think you know him, but you don't. You think because he's playing house with you and your daughter that he's changed, but men like Jonathan don't change. They get bored. They move on. Men like Jonathan? Sarah leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You mean men who work 18-hour days to build something meaningful? Men who sit on the floor doing math homework with their daughters? Men who remember exactly how their daughter likes her grilled cheese cut. He's playing a role, Sarah. The devoted father, the reformed bachelor. But it won't last. When the novelty wears off, when being a father becomes inconvenient, he'll disappear. And you and your daughter will be left with nothing again. You're wrong. Am I? Then why hasn't he proposed to you? Why hasn't he moved you into his penthouse? Why is he keeping you at arm's length? Sarah felt the doubt creeping in despite her best efforts to fight it. We're taking things slowly. For Lily's sake. Or because he doesn't want to make promises he can't keep. Stop. Sarah's voice was louder now, drawing looks from other patrons. Just stop. I know what you're doing and it's not going to work. I'm trying to help you see reality before you get hurt again. You're trying to destroy my happiness because you can't stand the fact that Jonathan chose us over you. Victoria's mask slipped completely. He didn't choose you. He chose an obligation. He's taking care of you because the child is his, not because he loves you. You don't know anything about love, Sarah said. You've never loved anyone but yourself. And you've never stopped being naive. Victoria finished her champagne and stood up. When he breaks your heart again, don't say I didn't warn you. As Victoria walked away, Sarah sank back into her chair, her hands shaking. She hated that Victoria's words had affected her, hated that the old insecurities were clawing their way back to the surface. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. How did it go? Are you okay? Sarah stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. I'm fine. Heading home now. But she wasn't fine. Victoria's poison was already working its way through her system, making her question everything she thought she knew about Jonathan's feelings for her. That evening, when Jonathan came over for dinner, Sarah found herself watching him differently. Was he checking his phone more than usual? Did he seem distracted? Was this all just an elaborate performance? You're quiet tonight, Jonathan observed as they cleaned up after dinner. Are you sure you're okay? Victoria showed me pictures, Sarah said without looking at him. Pictures of what? You with another woman. Amanda Richardson. Jonathan froze. Sarah. Are you seeing her? Amanda is my lawyer. We had meetings about buying out Victoria's shares in the company. That's all. You had drinks with her. After a long day of negotiations, yes. Sarah, look at me. He gently turned her face toward his. Amanda is married with 3 kids. She's been my attorney for 5 years. There is nothing romantic between us. But Victoria said. Victoria is a liar. She's trying to do exactly what she did 9 years ago, make you doubt us so you'll leave. Sarah pulled away from him. What if she's right though? What if this is all just obligation? What if you're only here because Lily is your daughter? Do you really believe that? I don't know what to believe anymore. This all happened so fast. A month ago you didn't even know we existed. Now you're talking about buying houses and building a future together. How do I know this isn't just guilt? Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. Do you want me to prove it to you? How? Come away with me this weekend. Just you, not Lily. Let's go somewhere we can talk without any distractions, without any pressure. Let's figure out what this is between us. I can't leave Lily. Mrs. Chun can watch her, or we can hire a babysitter. Sarah, if we're going to make this work, we need to know that it's not just about Lily. We need to know that we still have something together, just us. Sarah considered his offer. The rational part of her brain knew that Victoria was trying to manipulate her, but the scared part, the part that had been abandoned before, was louder. Okay, she said finally. 1 weekend. But if I find out you're lying to me about anything? You won't, Jonathan said firmly. Because I'm not. As he left that night, Sarah stood at her window watching his car disappear into traffic. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wasn't all an elaborate charade. But Victoria's words kept echoing in her head. When he breaks your heart again, don't say I didn't warn you. Sarah just hoped that when the weekend was over, she would have her answer. One way or another, she would know if Jonathan Rivers was the man she had fallen in love with 9 years ago, or if he was just a stranger playing a role. The truth would either set them free or destroy them completely. The weekend trip to the lake house 2 hours outside the city was Jonathan's idea, but as they drove through the winding mountain roads, Sarah began to relax for the first time in weeks. She had left Lily with Mrs. Chen, who had insisted she was delighted to spend extra time with that sweet girl. I used to come here when I was a kid, Jonathan said as they pulled up to a modest cabin overlooking the water. My grandfather built it with his own hands. It's beautiful, Sarah said, and she meant it. The cabin was nothing like she had expected. No luxury, no ostentation, just a simple wooden structure surrounded by tall pines and the gentle lapping of lake water. I thought you might like it. It's the one place that's never been about money or business. Just family. They spent the first day talking about everything except their relationship. They hiked the trails Jonathan had explored as a child, cooked simple meals together, and sat on the dock watching the sunset. It felt easy, natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of weeks. Tell me about the years I missed, Jonathan said as they sat by the fire that night. Tell me about Lily as a baby, her first words, her first steps. Sarah smiled, her face softening in the firelight. She was walking by 10 months. I couldn't keep up with her. And she talked early too, full sentences by 18 months. She used to tell elaborate stories about imaginary friends and magical adventures. Does she still do that? Sometimes. She has this whole fantasy world where she's a scientist who invents machines to help people. Last week, she drew me a picture of a robot that could make free food for families who don't have enough money. Jonathan felt his chest tighten. Even in her imagination, his daughter was trying to solve the problems she had lived with. She's remarkable. She gets that from you. The way her mind works, the questions she asks. Sometimes I look at her and see you so clearly it takes my breath away. What was the hardest part? Raising her alone? Sarah was quiet for a moment. The nights when she was sick and I was scared. Making decisions about her future without having anyone to talk them through with. Watching other kids with their fathers and wondering if I had robbed her of something important. You didn't rob her of anything. You gave her everything you had. But was it enough? Look at who she is, Sarah. She's kind, brilliant, curious, generous. You raised an incredible human being under impossible circumstances. That's not just enough, that's miraculous. The next morning they woke up to rain pattering against the windows. Instead of hiking, they spent the day inside talking about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. What do you want, Sarah? Jonathan asked as they sat on the couch, sharing a cup of coffee. Not for Lily, not for us. What do you want for yourself? I want to matter, she said quietly. I want to do work that makes a difference. I want to use my brain for something important. The foundation job scares me to death, she admitted. What if I'm not smart enough? What if I make mistakes with other people's money? What if you change thousands of lives for the better? That afternoon, as they prepared to head back to the city, Sarah finally asked the question that had been haunting her since her meeting with Victoria. Jonathan, are you here because you love me, or because you feel guilty about missing 9 years of Lily's life? Jonathan set down his coffee cup and looked at her seriously. Do you want the honest answer? Sarah's heart sank. Yes. Both. Her face must have shown her disappointment because he quickly continued. I feel guilty about missing those 9 years, and that guilt is part of what drives me to be a better father now. But Sarah, I was in love with you 9 years ago and I never stopped being in love with you. When I saw you in that diner, exhausted and beautiful and fierce, protecting our daughter with everything you had, I fell in love with you all over again. How do I know that's true? Because I'm telling you. Because I've never lied to you about anything. Because when Victoria tried to manipulate you into leaving me, I chose you instead of believing her version of events. She said you would get bored with playing house. Victoria doesn't understand love, so she can't recognize it in other people. She thinks everything is a transaction, a game, a manipulation. But this isn't a game to me, Sarah. You and Lily aren't a charity case or a guilty conscience. You're my family. What about Amanda Richardson? Jonathan sighed. Amanda is handling the legal work to completely remove Victoria from my business and my life. Yes, we had drinks after a long day of meetings. No, there was nothing romantic about it. She spent most of the time showing me pictures of her kids and complaining about her husband's golf obsession. Sarah studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. All she saw was sincerity and patience. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of believing this is real and then losing it. Of letting Lily get attached to the idea of having a father and then having you decide it's too complicated. Of trusting you with my heart again." Jonathan reached for her hands. "I can't promise that loving each other will always be easy. I can't promise we won't have fights or disagreements or difficult times. But I can promise you that I will never abandon you or Lily. I can promise that I will fight for this family every single day. Even when it gets hard? Especially when it gets hard." As they drove back to the city that evening, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in 9 years: peace. Not the exhausted peace that came from surviving another day, but the deep peace that came from knowing she was exactly where she belonged. When they picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment, she launched herself into both their arms. "Did you miss me?" she asked. "Every second," Jonathan said, lifting her up and spinning her around. "Did you have fun without me?" "We had a good time," Sarah said, "but it wasn't complete without you." That night, as they tucked Lily into bed in her small room, she looked up at both of them seriously. "Are you going to get married?" she asked. Sarah and Jonathan exchanged glances over her head. "Would you like us to get married?" Jonathan asked. "I think so. But only if you promise not to fight all the time like Jimmy's parents do." "We promise to try our best to work out our problems without fighting," Sarah said. "And you promise not to get divorced?" "We promise to work very hard to stay together," Jonathan said carefully. "Okay. But I want to be in the wedding. And I want to wear a pretty dress. And I want there to be cake." After Lily fell asleep, Sarah and Jonathan sat at her kitchen table, both thinking about her questions. "She's right to ask for promises," Sarah said. "She's been through enough uncertainty. Then let's make sure we can keep the promises we make." "Is that a proposal?" Jonathan smiled. "Not yet. But it's a promise that one is coming." As Jonathan left that night, Sarah felt like she was finally ready to believe in their future together. Victoria's poison had been neutralized by Jonathan's honesty and consistency. For the first time in 9 years, Sarah was ready to trust her heart again. But Victoria Hamilton wasn't finished with them yet. Not by a long shot. Victoria Hamilton sat in her corner office at Hamilton Industries, staring at the legal documents Jonathan's attorneys had delivered that morning. The buyout offer was more than generous, it was astronomical. Jonathan was paying nearly double what her family's shares were worth just to get her out of his life completely. But it wasn't about the money. It had never been about the money. It was about control, about winning, about proving that she was the only woman worthy of Jonathan Rivers' attention. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Miss Hamilton? Your 2 o'clock appointment is here." "Send him in." Marcus Webb was exactly the kind of man Victoria needed for her plan. Smart, ruthless, and completely without morals when the price was right. He had a reputation for destroying people who crossed his clients, and he did it all perfectly legally. "Miss Hamilton," Marcus said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "I understand you have a problem that needs solving." "I have a situation that requires creative handling," Victoria corrected. "Jonathan Rivers is making some poor decisions that could hurt his business interests. I'd like to help him see reason." "What kind of poor decisions?" Victoria slid a folder across the desk. "He's gotten involved with a woman who has a questionable past. Sarah Patterson, formerly Sarah Bennett. She took $50,000 to disappear from his life 9 years ago, and now she's back with a child, claiming it's his." Marcus flipped through the documents Victoria had compiled. "DNA test confirms paternity," he noted. "DNA can be manipulated. The point is, this woman is a gold digger who's using a child to get her hooks into one of the wealthiest men in the city. If this story gets out to the media, it could damage Jonathan's reputation and, by extension, his company's stock price." "What exactly are you proposing?" "I want you to make Sarah Patterson's life difficult enough that she decides it's in her best interest to take a generous settlement and disappear again. Only this time, permanently." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "That's a delicate operation. What's your budget?" "Whatever it takes." "And if she doesn't scare easily?" Victoria's smile was cold as ice. "Then we get creative." Meanwhile, across town, Sarah was having the best day she'd had in years. She had just finished her first week at the Rivers Foundation, and the work was everything Jonathan had promised: challenging, meaningful, and perfectly suited to her skills and interests. "How did the meeting with the Children's Hospital go?" Jonathan asked when he picked up Lily from school. "They need funding for a new wing, but I think we can make it work," Sarah said, sliding into the passenger seat of his car. The numbers look good and the impact would be huge. Look at you making executive decisions already, Jonathan teased. It feels good to use my brain for something important again. In the back seat, Lily was chattering about her day at school. And then Tommy said his dad was taking him to the baseball game this weekend, and I said my dad was taking me to the science museum, and he said that was boring, but I said science museums are way cooler than baseball because you learn things. Did you tell him about the planetarium? Jonathan asked. Yes. And the hands-on chemistry lab. He might want to come with us now. Sarah watched Jonathan interact with their daughter in the rearview mirror. The bond between them was growing stronger every day. Lily had started calling him Dad instead of Mr. Jonathan, and Jonathan lit up every time she said it. They were starting to feel like a real family. That's when Victoria's plan went into motion. The first sign of trouble came on Monday morning when Sarah arrived at work to find two men in expensive suits waiting in her office. Miss Patterson? We're from the IRS. We need to discuss some irregularities in your tax filings from the past 3 years. Sarah's blood ran cold. What kind of irregularities? Unreported income, questionable deductions, possible fraud charges. We're going to need to see all your financial records. Sarah spent the entire day being interrogated about finances that barely existed. How could she have unreported income when she had been living paycheck to paycheck? What questionable deductions when she barely had enough expenses to itemize? By the time the agents left, Sarah was shaking and confused. She called Jonathan immediately. This doesn't make sense, he said after she explained what happened. I'll have my accountant look into it. What if they're right? What if I made mistakes without realizing it? Then we'll fix them. Don't worry about this, Sarah. But the problems were just beginning. The next day, Sarah received a call from Lily's school. There had been an anonymous tip that Lily was being neglected at home, and Child Protective Services wanted to do a home visit. This is ridiculous, Sarah told the social worker who showed up at her apartment that evening. Look around. Lily has everything she needs. The woman did look around, taking notes about the clean apartment, the well-stocked refrigerator, Lily's neat bedroom full of books and toys. The tip mentioned that the child was often left alone, that there were strange men coming and going from the apartment. Strange men? Sarah's voice rose. The only man who comes here is Lily's father. And you can prove paternity? Yes, we have DNA tests. After an hour of questions and inspection, the social worker seemed satisfied that the tip was false. But the damage was done. Lily had been scared and confused by the whole process, asking Sarah over and over if she was in trouble, if they were going to be separated. The third incident happened on Thursday. Sarah's landlord called to inform her that there had been complaints about noise and disturbances from her apartment, and that several neighbors had reported suspicious activities. What kind of suspicious activities? Sarah asked, bewildered. Drug dealing, prostitution, that sort of thing? That's insane. I work for a charitable foundation. I'm raising an 8-year-old daughter. I don't even have time for suspicious activities. But the landlord was unmoved. I'm going to need to do a surprise inspection tomorrow, or I'll have to consider terminating your lease. That night, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with her head in her hands. In 1 week, she had gone from feeling like her life was finally coming together to feeling like everything was falling apart. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. It's Victoria, she told Jonathan when he came over after putting Lily to bed. She's behind all of this. I think you're right, Jonathan said grimly. I've been making some calls. The IRS agents who visited you? They were hired by a private investigation firm. The tip to child services came from an untraceable phone number. And your landlord? He recently received a very generous offer to buy this building from a shell company. She's trying to destroy my life. She's trying to make you run again. She's hoping that if she makes things difficult enough, you'll take Lily and disappear rather than fight back. What if she's right? What if I should just take Lily and leave? I can't put her through this stress. Jonathan grabbed Sarah's hands. Look at me. We are not letting Victoria win. Not again. But what if she escalates? What if she hurts Lily somehow? She won't. Victoria is cruel, but she's not stupid. She knows that anything that happens to Lily will bring down the full weight of my resources on her head. She's playing psychological games, not physical ones. So what do? Jonathan's expression was hard as steel. We finish what she started. It's time Victoria learned what happens when you threaten my family. The next morning, Jonathan made a series of phone calls. By afternoon, the first phase of his counterattack was in motion. Victoria was in a board meeting when her assistant burst through the doors, looking panicked. "Miss Hamilton, you need to see this," she said, handing Victoria a tablet. On the screen was a news article from the city's largest newspaper, Hamilton Industries under investigation for tax evasion and money laundering. Victoria's face went white as she read the article. Someone had leaked detailed financial records showing questionable transactions, offshore accounts, and suspicious payments to private investigators and shell companies. "This is..." Victoria started to say, then stopped as her phone began ringing. Then the conference room phone. Then every phone in the building. The article was just the beginning. By the end of the day, the FBI had served warrants to search Hamilton Industries offices. The IRS had frozen several of the company's accounts pending investigation. And 3 major clients had called to terminate their contracts, citing concerns about the company's ethical practices. Victoria's reputation, carefully built over decades, was crumbling in real time. She knew exactly who was responsible. That evening, Victoria stormed into Jonathan's office building, pushing past security and marching straight to the executive floor. She burst through his office doors like an avenging angel, her perfect composure finally shattered. "You did this," she snarled. Jonathan looked up from his desk calmly. "I have no idea what you're talking about. The investigation, the leaked documents, the media blitz. You destroyed my company. Your company destroyed itself when you decided to use it to harass my family. I'll sue you for everything you're worth." "With what lawyers?" "From what I hear, Hamilton Industries can't afford to pay its current legal bills, let alone take on new ones." Victoria's hands were shaking with rage. "This isn't over, Jonathan." "Yes, it is." Jonathan stood up and walked around his desk to face her. "You made a choice 9 years ago to threaten a pregnant woman and steal my daughter from me. You made another choice last week to try to destroy the mother of my child. Those choices have consequences. You can't prove I did anything. I don't have to prove it. But I can make sure that every business leader, every social contact, every person in your circle knows exactly what kind of person you are. I can make sure that your name becomes synonymous with manipulation and cruelty. You're destroying me over a woman who sold you out for money. I'm protecting my family from someone who thinks she can control other people's lives through fear and intimidation." Victoria stared at him for a long moment, seeing something in his eyes she had never seen before: absolute certainty. There would be no negotiating, no manipulating, no changing his mind. "I underestimated you," she said finally. "You underestimated love," Jonathan corrected. "You never understood it, so you never saw how powerful it could be." As Victoria left his office, her shoulders slumped in defeat, Jonathan felt no satisfaction in her downfall. He took no pleasure in revenge. But he felt deep satisfaction in knowing that Sarah and Lily would never have to fear Victoria Hamilton again. The next morning, he drove to Sarah's apartment to find her reading the newspaper with an expression of shock. "Did you see this?" she asked, holding up the front page. "I might have heard something about it," Jonathan said with a small smile. "You did this for us. I did this for us." Sarah set down the newspaper and looked at him seriously. "What does this mean? Is it really over?" "Victoria's company is finished. Her reputation is destroyed. Her family's money can't fix this kind of scandal. She'll probably leave the city, maybe the country. And us. Us." Jonathan knelt down in front of Sarah's chair and pulled out a small velvet box. "I think it's time we made this official." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as he opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. "Sarah Bennett Patterson, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making up for the 9 years I missed? Will you let me be the husband you deserve and the father Lily needs?" Through her tears, Sarah could only nod. As Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger, she felt like the scared girl who had run away 9 years ago was finally, truly gone. In her place was a woman strong enough to fight for love, wise enough to trust in it, and brave enough to believe in happily ever after. 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of a full-length mirror in the bridal suite of the small chapel where she and Jonathan had decided to exchange vows. The dress was simple but elegant. Nothing like the elaborate gown she had once imagined wearing in a big church wedding. This was better. This was real. "Mama, you look like a princess," Lily said, admiring her own flower girl dress in the mirror next to Sarah's. "You look pretty beautiful yourself, sweetheart." Lily had insisted on helping plan every detail of the wedding. She had chosen the flowers, white roses and baby's breath, the music, a string quartet playing classical pieces, and even the menu for the reception, grilled cheese sandwiches cut into triangles, just like the ones Jonathan had bought her that first night at the diner. Are you nervous? Lily asked. A little, Sarah admitted. But good nervous. Excited nervous. I'm excited too. I've never been in a wedding before. Sarah knelt down to Lily's level, adjusting her daughter's flower crown. Are you happy about this? About me marrying your dad? Yes, Lily said solemnly. But I have a question. What's that? If you're marrying Dad, does that mean I get to call you Mrs. Rivers too? Sarah laughed. If you want to. But I'll always be Mama to you no matter what my last name is. Can I be Lily Rivers instead of Lily Patterson? We'll all be the Rivers family, Sarah said, her eyes filling with tears. How does that sound? Perfect. There was a soft knock on the door and Jonathan's voice came through. Are my girls ready? Dad, you're not supposed to see Mama before the wedding. Lily called out. It's bad luck. She's right, Sarah said laughing. Go away. Fine, but we start in 10 minutes. Don't be late to your own wedding. We won't, Sarah promised. As she heard his footsteps walking away, Sarah took one last look at herself in the mirror. 9 years ago, she had been a scared college graduate who thought love meant making sacrifices that hurt. Today, she was a woman who understood that real love meant choosing each other every day, fighting for each other, and building something beautiful together. The chapel was small but perfect, filled with the people who mattered most to them. Jonathan's parents had flown in from Seattle, and they had spent the weekend getting to know their new granddaughter. Sarah's sister had driven up from Atlanta with her family, thrilled to finally meet the man Sarah had never stopped loving. Mrs. Chin sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. She had become like a grandmother to Lily over the past months, and Sarah couldn't imagine celebrating this day without her. As the string quartet began playing the wedding march, Lily walked down the aisle first, scattering rose petals and beaming at everyone she passed. When she reached the altar, she stood next to Jonathan and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Dad, you look very handsome." Then Sarah appeared at the back of the chapel, and Jonathan forgot how to breathe. She was radiant. Not because of the dress or the flowers or the setting, but because of the joy on her face, the love in her eyes, the absolute certainty in her step as she walked toward him. When she reached the altar, Jonathan took her hands and leaned down to whisper, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "Save some words for the vows," Sarah whispered back, making him laugh. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They had written their own vows, and when it came time to speak them, Jonathan went first. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the small chapel, 9 years ago, I lost the most important thing in my life because I was too young and too scared to fight for it. I'm not that man anymore. I promise to choose you every day, to fight for our family, to never let anyone come between us again. I promise to be the husband you deserve and the father Lily needs. I promise to love you both with everything I have, for the rest of my life." Sarah wiped tears from her eyes before speaking her own vows. "Jonathan, you gave me the greatest gift of my life, our daughter. But more than that, you've given me hope, security, and a love that feels safe and strong and real. I promise to trust you with my heart, to believe in us even when things get difficult, to choose love over fear every single day. I promise to be your partner in building the kind of family we both dreamed of." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Jonathan kissed Sarah with all the love and longing of 9 years apart and all the hope and joy of a lifetime together. Lily clapped enthusiastically, and the small congregation erupted in cheers. After the ceremony, they moved to the reception hall Jonathan had rented, a simple space that had been transformed with fairy lights and flowers into something magical. The grilled cheese sandwiches were a hit, as was the 3-tier cake Lily had helped design. During the father-daughter dance, Jonathan swept Lily around the dance floor while she giggled and stepped on his toes. "Thank you for taking care of Mama when I wasn't there," he told her as they danced. "Thank you for coming back," she replied seriously. "And for loving us. Always, sweetheart. Always." When it was time for the bride and groom's first dance, Jonathan and Sarah moved together to the same song they had danced to at their college graduation party 9 years earlier. Sarah rested her head on Jonathan's shoulder and closed her eyes, feeling like she was exactly where she belonged. "Any regrets?" Jonathan asked quietly. "Only one," Sarah said. "I regret that we lost 9 years. But I don't regret anything that led us back to each other." "Even Victoria?" Sarah considered this. "Even Victoria. If she hadn't done what she did, I wouldn't have had 9 years alone with Lily. I wouldn't have learned how strong I am, how much I can handle on my own. I needed to become the person I am today to be ready for this kind of love. And what kind of love is this? The kind that lasts. The kind that fights. the kind that chooses family over everything else. As they swayed to the music, surrounded by their friends and family, with their daughter dancing nearby with Jonathan's father, Sarah felt a peace she had never experienced before. This wasn't the desperate, uncertain love of youth. This was the steady, confident love of two people who had been tested by life and chosen each other anyway. Later that evening, after Lily had fallen asleep in the bridal suite, she had insisted on staying with them for their first night as a married family. Sarah and Jonathan sat on the balcony of their hotel room, looking out at the city lights. "So what now?" Sarah asked. "Now we go home. We move into our new house. We raise our brilliant daughter. We run the foundation together. We live happily ever after." You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is simple. Maybe we just thought it had to be complicated. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and smiled. "What is it?" Jonathan asked. "Mrs. Chin. She says she's already planning Lily's birthday party next month. Apparently, she has ideas about themes and decorations. She's become family, hasn't she? The best kind of family. The kind you choose." As they prepared for bed, Sarah caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. She was wearing Jonathan's old college t-shirt and her hair was messy from the long day, but she was glowing with happiness. 9 years ago, she had looked in a mirror and seen a scared girl who didn't know how to fight for what she wanted. Tonight, she saw a woman who had learned that love was worth fighting for, that family was worth protecting, and that sometimes the best revenge against those who try to destroy you is simply living well. Victoria Hamilton had disappeared from their lives as completely as if she had never existed. Word around the city was that she had moved to Europe, her reputation in ruins, her family's business destroyed by the investigations that followed Jonathan's revelations. Sarah felt no satisfaction in Victoria's downfall, but she felt deep gratitude that the threat was over. As she climbed into bed next to her husband, Sarah thought about the 8-year-old girl who had used her last $6 to buy coffee for a sad stranger. That simple act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that brought their family together. "What are you thinking about?" Jonathan asked, pulling her close. "Lily. How a child's kindness saved us all. She's remarkable. She's ours." "Yes," Jonathan said, kissing the top of Sarah's head. "She is." As Sarah drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, she felt like her life had finally come full circle. The scared girl who had run away was gone. The struggling single mother was gone. In their place was a woman who had learned to trust and love, to fight for family, and to believe in second chances. Tomorrow they would start their new life as the Rivers family. They would move into their new house, continue their work at the foundation, and raise their daughter together. There would be challenges certainly, but they would face them as a team. Tonight, though, was perfect. Tonight, they were simply a family that had found its way back to each other against all odds. And they lived happily ever after.